5 Most Haunted Places in the United States. Number 1. The LaLaurie Mansion, New Orleans, Louisiana. Madame Mary Delphine LaLaurie was a Louisiana socialite known for hosting ritzy soirees in her decadent Creole mansion in the French Quarter of New Orleans. During the 19th century, guests gorged on fine food and champagne, unaware of the grisly scene unfolding 2 floors above. When the local police responded to a kitchen fire in the year 1834, they discovered the bodies of several horribly mutilated slaves in the attic. When the police learned of LaLaurie's grotesque secret, a mob stormed the house, prompting her to flee to France. Soon after LaLaurie disappeared from New Orleans, people claimed to hear the phantom screams of her victims spilling from the house in the dead of the night. Number 2. The Shanghai Tunnels, Portland, Oregon. Portland was one of the most dangerous ports in the United States during the early 19th century and was the epicenter of an illicit maritime practice known as shanghaiing, a form of human trafficking. According to the local law, swindlers preyed upon unsuspecting men in the local saloons, which were often outfitted with trapdoors that deposited the victims directly into a network of underground tunnels. These men were then supposedly held captive, drugged, and eventually transported to the waterfront, where they were sold to ships as unpaid laborers. Some worked for several years before finding their way back home. The tunnels are said to be haunted by the grieved spirits of the captives who died in the dark recess beneath the city. Number 3. Eastern State Penitentiary, Philadelphia. This menacing Gothic-style prison opened in Philadelphia in 1829 and became the first in the United States to implement solitary confinement, a hotly debated practice. Prisoners languished in gloomy stone cells with virtually no human contact, with hoods placed over their heads anytime they were moved. Proponents of the system believed that solitude would lead to penitence, which would ultimately result in rehabilitation. Critics, on the other hand, believed it incited emotional anguish comparable to physical torture. The so-called Pennsylvania system was replicated in several other states and in Europe. When the prison closed in 1971, it is believed that the ghosts of the inmate took back the prison. Visitors claim to see their apparitions wandering the corridors and hear mischievous whispers in abandoned cell blocks. Number 4. RMS Queen Mary, Long Beach, California. This retired ocean liner sailed the Atlantic Ocean from 1936 to 1967. During her first 3 years at sea, the Queen Mary carried Hollywood celebrities like Elizabeth Taylor and dignitaries like General Dwight Eisenhower. Her days as a luxury ship were short-lived, however. In the year 1939, she was stripped of her amenities and began her second life as the Grey Ghost, a World War II troop ship. At the conclusion of the war, she was restored to her former glory and traversed the Atlantic Ocean for nearly 2 more decades. On Halloween 1967, the Queen Mary departed on her last cruise, eventually docking in Long Beach, California, her final resting place. The ship is reportedly haunted by the spirits of those who died aboard, such as the young sailor who was crushed to death by a door in the engine room, and a crew member who was murdered in the cabin B340. Number 5. Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast, Fall River, Massachusetts. On August 4, 1892, the bodies of Andrew and Abby Borden were discovered bludgeoned beyond recognition in their home. The prime suspect, their youngest daughter, Lizzie. The Borden case was one of America's most finest crimes drawn for the media spotlight, capturing the attention of the nation. Despite the allegations that Lizzie had financial motives for the murder and growing public scrutiny, she was ultimately acquitted due to lack of physical evidence. The Borden home has since been converted into a museum and bed and breakfast, where guests can see the gruesome photos of the crime scene and sleep in one of its reportedly haunted rooms. The 19th century murder made headlines again when it received a Hollywood makeover with Lifetime's 2014 movie, Lizzie Borden Took an Axe, starring Christiana Ricci. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, this video comes to an end. Please like, comment and subscribe for more.